Hello! So today we are going to be taking a little look at RNAV navigation in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So the more I've kind of read up on this and read around what other people say about RNAV, the more kind of hoodoo I discover, rumour and fear, uncertainty and doubt that people spread around about it. It really isn't as complicated as anybody makes out. If you look at an RNAV approach plate, for example, all it really is doing is instructing you how to navigate in between beacons. So in other words, instead of making your route go directly over beacons, as you might do if you're flying point to point from VOR station to VOR station, for example, all RNAV is really doing is saying, well, rather than do that, why not fly a specific route in between beacons, but keep them at maybe a particular distance and a particular bearing from them for your checkpoints along the way. So you're flying between areas in the air or points in the airspace that are not directly over beacons. That's all RNAV really means. It's just area navigation, so navigating through an area. So if we go and have a look at a map, we're at Southampton in the south of England, and we're going to fly east over to Lydd. But we're going to do it without going point to point. So just for the example's sake here, I've made a very kind of squirrely route via the VORs to show you the difference. So if we were to fly VOR to VOR and pick some of these out, we could maybe, we could go over here and we could add this one as well, make it look even more crazy. So you could do this zigzag route going from VOR to VOR to get from Southampton to Lydd. Now I'm not saying it's the easiest route, obviously, because there's the Mayhurst one here as well we're not using, but we could also do it by flying directly. And if you choose the correct aeroplane in the simulator, one that's got a working RNAV radio, then we can actually use it to our advantage, and we can program in some of these waypoints along the way, and we can, fly towards a point in space that is at a distance and a bearing from each VOR station. So we're going to have a look at doing that in the Black Square Bonanza. Okay, so we're in the Bonanza. We're just going to go and get it fired up. So battery on, alternator on, magnetos to both, turn the beacon light on, make sure the mixture is on rich, put the propeller on high RPM, and we should be good to go to, I'll just crack the throttle open a little bit, and let's turn the engine over. Oh, is it not going to turn over? Okay, maybe we need the pump. Where's the pump in this thing? So we've got the high. We'll put it on high. Back to low. Okay, maybe we do need high. Yes, we do. It's a while since I've flown this aeroplane. Okay, so we'll just sort the engine out. So let's take it up to 1000 RPM. And leave it there. We're sat on the parking brake. Let me just check the volume levels as well. Okay, so you can make this a bit louder for you as well. It's not too loud outside. Okay, so we can put the nav light on, put the pitot heat on. Actually, no, we're going to turn the pitot heat off. We're going to be sitting here for a while we're doing this, so put the avionics on. And we should be good. So we've got 44 degrees centigrade. Oh, it's only 6 degrees in the cabin. So let's warm this up a little bit while we're sat here. But not too much, hey? So we're just waiting for the kit to come up. It's all looking good. So the instrument we're really interested in, notice in the Bonanza we get the option of the radio kit. I've put it right down onto the bottom option, which gives us the old-fashioned radio kit. And more importantly, it gives us this. So we can click on, now let me just check this. So we got data, data, data. That lets us do that. How do we change? So that's the mode. can we change the... Yes, we've got separate waypoints we can set up. So what we're going to do then is use the frequency, so we can press the data button to change between frequency, radial and distance. So on number 1, we will set this for the Goodwood VOR. So Goodwood VOR is 114.75. So we come back into the simulator and we put in 114.75. Then we press data again and it moves the focus over to the radial. And we want to be from Goodwood, we want the radial to be 359 degrees, 6 miles. It could be 0 degrees, couldn't it? So the radial needs to be 0. So we'll roll it round. Zero degrees. Press data again and change the distance to 6 miles. Can we really not? Oh, we can get the decimals, we just have to push the knob in. Okay. And then we roll the inner knob here to go to number 2. And now we're going to go and do Midhurst. Actually, let me just check. How many of these do we get to use? 3, 4, 5. Oh, we got lots. So the second one, I need to get this OBS out of the tab order, don't I? Let me just do that. There we go. Midhurst is 114.00. So we press data and we want 114.00. Then we press data. The radial we want from Midhurst is 180 degrees. Notice you can be very exact about these. And the distance we want is 5.8 nautical miles. So press data to move the focus to distance, and we want 5.8. Okay, then we're going to go to number 3. We're going to use the Seaford VOR 117.00. Press data to change the frequency. 117. That's annoying. It actually increments the integers on this one when you... Oh, yeah. 11700. And we want to be a bearing of 359 degrees and 11.9. So press data. So that's the same as 360 and 11.9 miles. So 11 point... I knew that was going to happen somehow. There we go, 11.9. Then the next one we're going to do, number 4, is going to be based on the Detling VOR 117.3. So we need to change the frequency to 117.3. The radial is going to be 180 degrees and 21 miles. Okay, and I think that's it. So what we've actually done, we've programmed into the RNAV, is these points in space in the straight line. So then as we go through them, as we're flying, we can go back here now. So 3, 2, 1. And we can click use on each one as we come up to it. So then the HSI here, we can switch this over. We can switch this to use RNAV, for example, and we can switch the HSI source to be RNAV as well. Now we know we're going to be flying a route that's 89 degrees, so we can go and set the course to 89 degrees. If I can control the needle on the HSI. And we can set the heading bug as well to 89 degrees. Okay, so let's get the rest of the airplane running, get in the air, and then we can actually see this sort of stuff happening. So taxi light on. We'll put the floodlights on. It's a little bit dark in the morning still here. We'll put the landing lights on. We'll put the strobe lights on. pitot heat on. We're not doing everything perfectly by the book here, but we're just getting on with it really. Okay. We'll set our altitude for the flight at say 1500 feet. Should be fine. We're going to be fairly low all the way. We can obviously adjust that as we go if we need to. We'll go also and turn on the radar, and then we'll go and put the transponder on while we're sat here. So we've got 18 degrees centigrade in the cab, that's perfect, or in the cabin I should say. Okay, come off the parking brake. And we'll taxi out to the runway here at our departure airfield. So let's have a look at the layout of the runway. This is Southampton International we're at. So we're just going to come down to the corner and then follow the taxiway. Okay, should we get the head tracking working as well while we're at it? I'll just slow us down a little bit. There we go. Okay, we shouldn't need any flaps for takeoff. It's a nice long runway. There's hardly any wind. Well, there's a little bit of a crosswind, not too much. Okay. Holding the aircraft on the centre line. It's fairly stable, so gently rotate. Gear up. Get clear of the airfield, and then we'll begin our right turn. So the beep there is just we're within 1,000 feet of our target altitude already, which is good. So you can see now, this is telling us we're slightly off the track for our flight through these beacons, which is absolutely fine. We're just going to level ourselves out here, trim ourselves out. And we'll go and engage the autopilot. So we'll go to nav mode. Now, will it understand? I don't think it will. I think this is a limitation of the simulator, so we're going to go for heading mode. Okay, that's we're in cruise. We can cut the throttle back and enjoy the journey basically. We can go for a bit more power than that. Maybe a little bit more RPM. Okay, so the landing light can come off now. So you can see we are off, slightly off to the left of our track on the RNAV towards the beacon at 11475 at 6 miles at a radial of 0, which was our first one, if you remember. It's this one. So we're aiming for this point. So at the moment we need to steer. This is a limitation of the simulator, that when you're on RNAV you can't use navigation. on the autopilot. Well, that's what I've been told anyway. So what we're going to do is use heading mode to do that. Just to get the CDI into the middle, and we'll just track it by hand along the way. Have we got much in the way of a crosswind? Yeah, we've got a little bit of a crosswind on the way, so not too much though. Okay, so during the flight all we're going to do is keep an eye on this, and obviously the distance measuring equipment is going to tell us, based on the RNAV signal, the distance to that next hypothetical point or projected point. Yeah, so we're just coming on to the track here. So we're measuring to here, not to the VOR. Yeah, so that's 6 miles. Is to the projected point on the RNAV. Seems a shame not to look out and enjoy the scenery as we go by. It's quite pretty out there today. Doing about 155 knots. 5 miles to run. So yeah, it becomes actually quite straightforward now to fly along through these various waypoints. So we're going to be blown away from the route. We're slightly off to the left at the moment, but we're going to give ourselves a slight crab angle because we know the wind is coming in from the north. We can see there's some hills ahead as well, so we probably want to go and get ourselves another 1,000 feet further up into the air. So we'll just manage that with the autopilot. So we can just arm that altitude, if I can click on it, then go to vertical speed and tell us to go at 500 feet until we get there. 500 feet a minute, that is. You can see that's reflected on the vertical speed. We'll give ourselves a little bit more power to make that happen without losing too much airspeed. So we just need to keep an eye on the CDI along the way. We've got 4 miles to run now, look, until our virtual point in space. So at some point we're going to switch over to the second one. Which is not far away. So what we could do, we'll do it now just for the sake of showing it. So we click use, and this is now reflecting the second RNAV signal. So in other words, it's 5 miles away again, look. So that's 5 miles between here and here now. But we're still on that track. So the track is the projected track from us to this point in space. So the CDI is relating to that, not the VOR station. But the whole point, this is the whole point of area navigation. You are navigating through an area, not from beacon to beacon. You can use the beacons alongside the area, so you are at bearings and distances from them as you travel. Obviously GPS has turned all of this on its head, but I thought this was just a useful video to make to show you the actual application for an RNAV radio, of why you might use it. And it's to save fuel. You can fly a straight line instead of a zigzag line. Obviously you could still fly the straight line without an RNAV radio, but you just have more calculations to do on a piece of paper or in your head along the way. You know, to figure out the bearings. You could triangulate, for example, between 2 VOR stations to do it. But obviously an RNAV radio or computer figures all that out for you. So it translates that, that virtual station into a reading on the HSI for you, which is much easier to follow than figuring out in your head. Okay, so we're at 2,500 feet now. 3 miles to run. As you can see, we're coming in on this now. Oh, sorry, 6 miles to run. You can see it there. Look. Oh no, that's the distance. Sorry, that's the distance on the vectored thing. So this is interesting. So did that actually switch over? 3 minutes. Oh, so yes, it's not miles, it's minutes. I misread the sign. So you got nautical miles there, counting down the knots and how many minutes until you get to the next RNAV location. So where's our next one? Is the Seaford VOR. So we'll probably find out the HSI won't change very much at all if we go and use Seaford instead. No, it's just slightly off. So that's interesting, isn't it? Look, it's varying quite a lot. But look at that moving. That's the weather. Because it's further away. This is obviously the Black Square Bonanza, and the Black Square aircraft simulate interference on the radio signal depending on the weather and the distance away that the beacon is. So we will pretty much ignore that this is not dead on. We can give us a few degrees towards it. So we'll just edge back towards it slightly to see if we can center it up. Just check our numbers here. 11.9 miles, 360 degrees. 11.9 miles, 360 degrees, or 359. Doesn't make much difference. At the end of an arc, a degree isn't going to hurt. So we've got 31 miles to run to make that happen. So rather than bore you to death with flying along for 31 miles, waiting for it to count down while I manage the aeroplane on the CDI, I'm going to pause recording, and I'll unpause when we're getting close to this point here. So when we've done basically another 30 miles in the air. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, you're back with me. So just looking down here, we're closing in 6.5 miles away from the navigation point. So we're going to switch over in a moment to number 4, but we'll go back to number 3 for the moment. So at 11700, if we remember, we're flying in towards this point here. And then we're going to switch over to a point south of the Detling VOR, which was 117.300. So if we go to use number 4, there's the Detling VOR. So if we say use on that one, we'll notice the HSI will suddenly move, and it's saying we're a little bit out, but we know we're in the neighbourhood, so as long as it doesn't get any worse, if we really do want to follow that track, you can see, look, it's moving. So we're not going to do anything drastic, we're going to let it waver. You can see the CDI is swaying around, and that's because we are so far from the beacon. It just shows that VORs are not an exact science, and the radios can experience, depending on atmospheric conditions and your distance from them, cannot be the most accurate thing in the world. And obviously the further away you are from them, this is half the reason I chose one that was a good distance away, so you'd see that happen with it being slightly out. So we know that based on the wind, we actually want to be slightly north of our track. So I'm going to turn the aircraft back north of the track to stop ourselves from deviating much further. So we've now got 20 miles to run until the next navigation point, and that will be south of Detling. And then we fly from there. And again, the whole from and to situation with VOR still applies with RNAV. So we can fly past this navigation point on a given radial from it. So we can say we wanted to fly out here to join the ILS into Lydd. So we fly at 69 degrees from Detling. Oh, sorry, from the point south of Detling. It gets very meta when you're having to think about that kind of stuff. So yeah, when we get down to closer to the waypoint, we'll turn the course to 69 degrees and then use it to fly this vector out towards the approach for Lydd. Hopefully that will make some sense. Along the way we can admire the scenery. So I've got the Great Britain add-ons from Orbex installed, but they didn't give you a list of any of the structures or features that have been upgraded. So I've asked them and they still haven't come back to me. I said, you know, please can you just give me like a database file or something of the longitude, latitudes and features, but they still haven't come back to me. It's a bit of a shame. Okay, so 13 miles to run until we get to the point south of Detling. Then we go and try and fly, is it 69 degrees I said? Yeah, 69 degrees from the point south of Detling. So I will pause again so you don't have to sit here listening to me jabber on, and then we'll have something to show in a moment. Okay, so we're inside 5 miles now until the next navigation point, so let's have a quick look on the map. We're just approaching this point south of Detling and we're going to change our course to 69 degrees. So we can do that now because we're on heading mode, remember, on the autopilot. So we're going to change the course and you'll see the CDI move. So there's the 69 degrees. So we know when the CDI sweeps into the middle, we're on the 69 degree radial, so we can just spin the heading bug to meet it. So that will slowly sweep in. So as we get closer to the point where we need to turn right, turn left even, yeah, the CDI will slowly come in towards the middle. Just wait until the last moment. 6.5. So this is our final navigation point. We will be going from this point in space in a moment. So let's start turning. We've now flown over. The white arrow has gone to the opposite side of the HSI as it normally would. We're now flying away from that point in space, but we're going to be flying on the 69 degree radial away from it. And in fact, to counter the wind, we'll go a couple of degrees more than that. Okay, so now we can go and concentrate. So yeah, we've overshot slightly, but we're on the right track. 108.15 on the nav radio, so there's nav 1 up here, 108. 0.15 and 207 degrees on the course, 108.15. So you can see the instrument here has reacted immediately. Obviously the HSI is using RNAV at the moment. So we want to get back onto this track, so we can see we're slightly off to the right of the line. So we'll just put ourselves on an intercept to line that up, and we keep going until we are 17 miles away from that, or slightly less, 16 miles, and then we'll do a right turn. And then we flick over to use the ILS, but we'll want 207 degrees when we do our right turn. Okay, so we need to keep that in mind. So when we are 16 miles out from where we were, let's go more of an angle to get this back into the middle. Again, we'd like to do this quite accurately if we can. So we're flying away from a projected point in space from Detling on a given course. And when we are a given distance from that projected point, we can turn right. And this is what RNAV is all about, navigating in between the waypoints, in between the beacons. So, you know, reading measurements to plot your position when you're not directly over anything. Quite commonly you will see it on approach plates where you're having to fly DME arcs and things like that. So you're, you know, doing a gentle left turn and measuring your distance from a given beacon to maintain the distance as you turn. So again, you're not flying directly over anything, you're flying in relation to something else. Okay, so we're coming back onto the line now. So we'll take a few degrees off just to measure it neatly. Remember we said 16 miles would be a good point to turn around. We're at 2,500 feet over the ground, which should bring us into the ILS, but we'll drop down to 2,000 just to make this nice and straightforward. Hang on. 2,000 arm. Okay. Just come off the power a little bit so we don't accelerate too much as we descend. So we're just dropping down to 2,000 feet. We're 10 miles out now. Another few miles and we'll do our right turn. So if we have a look at the map, you should see, yeah, we're pretty much on the line at the moment and we're countering the crosswind fairly well. So 207 degrees, remember. As soon as we get to 16, we're going to turn right to 207. And we're going to switch over to using NAV1 instead of RNAV. So we'll continue on this heading for the moment and we'll prepare the course. It's about there, isn't it, 207, or there-ish. So that's the amount we have to do a right turn to. 3 miles to run. We can leave the RNAV on that, and we can switch the HSI to use NAV1. So we can leave the DME on RNAV. I'm getting good at saying things backwards today, I'm not sure why. So you can see we're below the glide slope, so we could do our turn now. So we will. So we'll go and turn this to RNAV and spin ourselves around. So again, we're not directly over anything, we're in between everything, but navigating in relation to everything around us. So if we suspect we're going to turn tighter than we need to, we can just leave ourselves on an intercept. Actually, no, we've done that pretty well. We've overdone it, actually. So yeah, we've overflown a little bit. So you can see there's the runway that we're aiming for. So we could actually put this on approach mode. Because we're just below the glide slope at the moment. So we've come out slightly off. That's interesting, isn't it? What was the... Is it an offset? Oh yes, it's an offset ILS. Look, you can see it. That's interesting. So it will turn left again in a moment. Watch the CDI. It's not that offset though, is it? Although I suppose it is, look. It's originating from the left side of the airfield at the end of a strip. So it brings you in kind of near. Anyway, let's go and turn the autopilot off. And bring this in by hand, which will make things a lot easier for us. So obviously the pappies are saying we're too high at the moment. That's absolutely fine. We've got lots of room to descend. That's interesting that I didn't notice when we put the flight plan in place that the ILS was offset so much. It's quite windy here, isn't it? So we've got you can obviously see we're crabbing across the runway, so we're going to straighten the plane up on the rudder, he says, as we go barreling along the runway. Just about make it in time to turn back on ourselves and come off the runway. So that was just a case of decrabbing ourselves over the runway and side slipping along the runway to straighten up so we didn't go corkscrewing off into the grass. I'll have to do a video on the different landing techniques again soon, because it's good to practice them as well. It's a bit busy here, isn't it? There's no way through to park anywhere. This is Lydd. I think this is the Orbex version of Lydd, actually. There's a lot going on here. So I'm just going to park randomly out here on the hard standing. Let's kill the engine. Okay. So hopefully you enjoyed that. So that was just a little look at area navigation, and you can see actually, look, without having any points to fly directly through, we did remarkably well. With tracking, we actually flew to a projected point here. Oops. Another one here. another one here, and then we flew a vector away from that projected point and circled back in for the landing. So yeah, hopefully that's useful to you, and maybe remove some of the fog around what RNAV really means. It's just area navigation. There's nothing special. It doesn't mean anything particularly special. It just means using the tools at your disposal to navigate. So I hope you enjoyed that. See you again soon.